Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. This is going to be my review for Mighty Morphin Issue 2. So this issue was fine. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great. It was kind of like a filler episode of issues, or like a setup episode if you were to put it in TV terms. Like, it was enjoyable, it had some cool parts, but it wasn't necessarily that eventful in a lot of ways in comparison to Mighty Morphin Issue 1, and then obviously Power Rangers Issue 1. So one of the most interesting parts, and probably the most interesting part, is the beginning scene where we get a little bit of flashback to Zordon's Eltar culture, and you have this guy in front of like the council of alien X heads, and they're like, "You may be on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master." Just kidding. I actually do grant him the rank of master, but there's this guy's name's Diaphragm or Zorfram or whatever, and he's getting to be like accepted as this guardian, and he's like, "Thanks." He's like, thanks. You know, thanks, but I think that we need to expand our reach. You know, we protect this galaxy, but the universe is under threat. You know, basically we need to go bigger. And the council's like, no, we're a bunch of self-righteous Zordon heads. But they're gonna go with them anyway, but they're apprehensive about it. It kind of just sets up the way Zordon's race is a bunch of like self-righteous douches. In a way, that sounds extreme, but it just kind of, it ties into what happens later with Zordon, where they kind of think they know better, but this guy has different ideas. He's like, look, you know, there's more people in trouble than just this galaxy. I also liked that because it tied into something I believe was from Power Rangers Issue 1, when there were the discussion about the Omega Rangers dealing with this new threat. And Trini says something to Tommy like, you know, there's more than just the problems on Earth, and not every planet has Power Rangers to protect them. And I thought that was a really cool parallel to that debate, as well as a parallel that's going to happen with Zordon later. And so after that, Billy is repairing Alpha, and he's talking to Zordon about what happened with the Omegas, and Zordon's like flying off the handle. He's like, I want to send out a beacon, I want like an APB for the Power Rangers, and if you see the Omegas, I want them brought in, and I'm going to take their powers. And, you know, as the years have gone on, as I've gotten older, I've kind of not liked Zordon as much. He's kind of like, my way or the highway, this is the only way. Don't escalate the battle unless Rita forces you to. Yeah, like, who would want to stop the fight before something bad happens? But I've kind of just not liked him more as time's gone on, and the comic kind of makes me not like him even more, because he's just so self-righteous, like, oh, I only know the best. And this really, I thought this was an extreme reaction. Like, yeah, what the Omegas did was underhanded, but I couldn't help but think about what Trini said. It's like, there's more than just the problems of Earth. We might need his help. You know, they're obviously experienced Rangers. They might be able to handle it. And I also get the point Draken's dangerous, but calling to basically arrest them and steal their powers, he has no right to that. He's not the master of all Power Rangers. Who do you think you are? What gives you the right? I thought that was kind of interesting. I think that was the best part of the issue, is that I felt Zordon's I know best attitude was a nice parallel to the way the Council of Floating Heads was. Not to mention the debate about, like, you know, you're thinking so small about protecting this small group when there's more people that need protecting. And obviously there's some also subtext about Billy's like feeling guilty because Zordon's, you know, like, everybody betrayed me, I fed up with this world, and Billy betrayed him, and he fed up with this world with the Green Ranger stuff. The Rangers are kind of talking about the whole situation over a game of basketball, about what their thoughts on what the Omegas did, and just like who's on what team. Not team, but like, some people agree with it sort of, or can see the point, and others don't. And that's kind of what that scene's about. And then you have a scene at the juice bar with I almost said Rocky, with Bulk and Skull kind of working out, because Skull's kind of worried because he hasn't seen his girlfriend in a while, and Bulk's like, oh, don't worry, she'll come around eventually. Obviously, because we found out she's a, you know, a cancer patient. No, she's from Eltar. And then they're hinting that she could be the Green Ranger. Speaking of, later they're at a carnival that they mentioned earlier during the basketball thing, and while they're there, Candace runs into Rocky, and he's like, oh, you look a little green. I see what you did there. Nicest one. Hinted that a little bit there. And then when they're there, they get attacked by this new breed of putties, because there's a new breed of putties that Finster's working on in the episode that he thinks will be, like, you know, meaner and more powerful. And then Zed gives them a little bit of green chaos energy boost. So putties are attacking the carnival, the Rangers morph, the Green Ranger shows up, and he gets, like, electrocuted from the green chaos energy from one of the putties. And so he's down for the count. And then it turns out, like, most, if not everybody at the carnival was like a putty plant, a PP. And they all rise up, and they surround the Rangers, and they're, well, surrounded. And they're like, no one gets inside. Not yet. and they're just surrounded, and then the Green Ranger's at their feet like, oh, you know, so yeah, it was a fine issue. Like I said, it wasn't really bad, but other than the sort of little bit of a lore flashback and some of the setup, it wasn't really that eventful compared to the first issue, which kind of set things up, and compared to Power Rangers as well. It is interesting though, if for whatever reason you only want to read this one, you might be a little bit lost, because the events and reactions to what happened in Power Rangers kind of directly drive the core of this issue in terms of what happens in it. Like, you know, the stuff going on around it with the Eltar stuff and the Green Ranger is obviously stuff specific to this comic, but like the core of this issue is about reacting to Power Rangers issue 1. So I'll be interested to see as we go how tied in they are. Like, I'm sure, obviously, the stories are going to be tied together and intersect at certain points, but I'm curious at certain chunks where we're going to get to points where you'll be able to follow Mighty Morphin or Power Rangers without having to worry about reading one or the other. Like, obviously it's not a problem for me, but I'm just kind of curious, like, if there's anybody that just wants to read one or the other, like, how lost are they going to feel? But yeah, it was a fine issue. I would give it a 7. I think it had some interesting stuff, some interesting parallels and themes, but it just wasn't all that eventful compared to previous weeks. But what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.